so fresh, looking so fresh. When I walk by, breaking their necks. Waiting in line at the team store. Now I'm feeling fly like a condor. Eyes on me when I walk through the door. Man, I wish I bought a couple more. Cause I really love my city. It was worth every penny. If it were at my show, then I know they gon' tip me. Think I might add a couple patches. If you think it's ugly, you capping. Now my whole outfit matching. Never going out of fashion.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome, episode 659, Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. Ben Fadden with you here on December 8th, 2024, the first night of the winter meetings in Dallas area, Dallas, Texas. It's the best week of the off season, obviously. I was just watching MLB Network for a couple of hours before coming on here. And yeah, there are a bunch of rumors flying around, and it's not really about the Padres, but it's still just a fun time of year. And so I'll obviously get to the chat. Maybe if someone wants to join the show, I'll put the link in here in a little bit. But yeah, just today I wanted to kind of preview what we may see Padres-wise this week. Some questions, just some thoughts that I have. And Dennis Lin, Kevin Acee, they haven't been writing like super consistently, especially Kevin, so far this offseason. And I understand it, writing for 8 months, take a break, right? Like, totally get that. But they're back now, and they put out recent articles, I believe in the past couple of days, kind of previewing themselves the winter meetings. And there's some information there that I do want to get to. And that's where I want to start here today. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. I know I haven't done a live show in probably like a month, maybe even more than that, but there hasn't been a lot of Padres stuff going on. So I feel like, though, today is a good day to do that. I know the Padres are not relevant in this, really, with Juan Soto, but we are on Juan Soto watch. There have been tweets that have come out the last hour or so about how the decision is nearing and it could be done by tonight. Soto could have a decision by tonight. So I don't know if that means 9 o'clock our time, and that would be 11, I think, Dallas time. Or does that mean it's going to be a 2 a.m. thing where they're staying up all night? Soto can make the decision whenever he wants. I mean, I know that there's a lot of talk about Soto and, he's expected to sign now, but this is the next 15 years possibly of his life. So if I was him, I'm not in a rush just because people are expecting me to sign. I'm going to take whatever time I want to make this decision. So we'll see if that ends up actually being true. But it does seem like he is going to get a deal done here in the next couple of days at least, just based on how it seems like everybody is expecting something to happen here pretty soon. But as for the Padres, let's start with Dennis Lin's article here. Padres head to the winter meetings facing questions of financial constraints. And Kevin got into this as well. And when I see that, I think I'm not just the only one that is a little disappointed that we're continuing to be talking about financial constraints with this team when you see how much money the Dodgers are spending. And this team is talented, but we are going to be losing some key pieces. We've already lost Kyle Higashioka. We're going to lose Tanner Scott. We'll see about Jurickson Profar. We'll see if Luis Ariz is still going to be on this team. I expect Dylan Cease to still be on this team, but he's someone that's not going to be making $1 million. He's obviously going to be making a good amount in, I believe, his final year before free agency. So this team's going to look different. And there's holes, obviously, on this roster. Joe Musgrove's going to be out the entire year with Tommy John surgery. So they're going to have to plug these holes. I don't know if they're going to plug all of these holes by acquiring cheaper talent via trade. But Mike Schilt, I don't know if everyone saw this, but on Foul Territory, he mentioned how AJ Preller, he has everything. He's got stuff going on everywhere. This cat is always getting after it. He couldn't even begin to keep up with hardly any of it. Schilt saying talking about Preller, he's going to do everything he can within the parameters he's given to give us a competitive club. And the key thing there is the parameters that he is given. if Preller wanted to spend, like if he could do whatever, of course he'd be in on Juan Soto. But he may not have traded him in the first place. But that's not the case. There are constraints here. In the TV deal, I think we got to remember that about the Padres. They're not getting that money that they thought they maybe were going to be getting in that Valley deal. That's not happening. So that's a big loss, obviously. Not making the postseason in 2023, I'll say that again. That was a big loss because there's a lot of revenue I'm sure that the Padres made in 2024. If they could have done that in 2023, maybe we're sitting in a little bit of a different spot. I'm not saying they would have signed Juan Soto, but maybe we're sitting in a little bit different of a spot, and they could be in on Max Fried or Corbin Burns. And we wouldn't just be waiting on Roki Sasaki. Maybe. Maybe they could be in on Tanner Scott. Just pointing that out there. But still, as a fan, I think we can still be frustrated, even though if we understand what's going on in the situation the Padres are in, I can still be frustrated that they were a win away from reaching the NLCS. I thought Padres Dodgers was the World Series. Whoever was going to win that series was going to win the World Series. The Dodgers win that series, and they end up winning the World Series. To come into this offseason, and the Dodgers, they go sign Blake Snell. They're going to bring back Teoscar Hernandez, I assume. I'd be pretty surprised if they don't. I don't think they're going to get Soto, but they're obviously really talented. And the Giants, they just go sign Willy Adames. I think the Padres are still better than the Giants. Giants could add big starting pitching because they still have money to spend, obviously, with some of the superstars that they have not been able to sign on that dotted line in past years. There's work to do, is my point. And it's going to involve spending money. Like, they're just going to have to do that. But Preller's going to have to be creative as well. But again, just getting back to me being frustrated as a fan, when you're right there, you want that commitment from ownership financially when us fans are spending hundreds of dollars on postseason tickets for one game, and you add that up, like, we want to see that commitment on the ownership part. I'm not saying ownership is just pocketing the money and they don't care. Definitely not saying that. I'm just saying, like, as a fan, I can still just be frustrated that I'm seeing other teams make these moves. And I know the Padres have made these types of moves before. That's why we have the talent that we have on this roster. But just wish that, I guess, we'd have more of an ability to spend so that we could be in on some of these elite guys. I guess that's my point there. Dennis writes here, in recent weeks, conversations with people inside and outside the organization have reinforced expectations of another winter of restrictive spending limits. The Padres cut almost $90 million in payroll last offseason, beginning by trading Soto to the Yankees during the winter meetings. Now, league sources say the Padres are in a better financial position than they were a year ago, which they better be, when they took out a $50 million loan to cover expenses. But before Preller has added a player with a major league deal, Fangraphs has projected the Padres payroll for 2025 at nearly $210 million. Estimated luxury tax number is $244, which is $3 million above that first tax threshold. I assume the Padres still want to be under that first tax threshold, but how much money, do we know the number? How much money did they get from the postseason? Could that help them pay the tax if they were to get over that first luxury tax threshold? Because if they need money to come off the books, obviously Tatis, Bogarts, Manny, Crony, like, those guys aren't going anywhere. So you look at Luis Ariz, someone like that. Suarez isn't going to go anywhere, right? I wouldn't assume. Kevin did mention Luis Camposano, and I'll get to that article here in a little bit. You just look at guys, if you're trying to get money off of the books, who are those guys? I don't want to get rid of Luis Ariz. I don't want to get rid of Dylan Cease. Michael King, it seems like they would want to get an extension done with him. But the Padres, they're probably going to have to be creative here. Is Dylan Cease the Juan Soto this offseason for the Padres, where you could get some young starting pitching maybe back in a deal, and you could create some more flexibility financially for you? You could get that big return. Maybe the Padres feel like, we're not going to we're not going to bring Dylan Cease back in for agency, especially if they see, let's say, Corbin Burns gets a huge amount. Maybe they're like, yeah, we're not going to be able to do that. Let's go make a Juan Soto type trade on the pitching side this offseason. I don't want Dylan Cease gone, obviously, but I'm just throwing some stuff out there when I'm seeing multiple beat writers mention how the Padres, they may be looking to cut a little bit from what their projected luxury tax number is, since they're already above that first luxury tax threshold. Maybe they want to be below it at some point. Oh, great. The Dodgers are signing Michael Conforto. So I already see some reaction. Please be out on Juan Soto now. How about be out on Teoscar Hernandez, actually? Have him go to like the Red Sox, Soto go to the Yankees. That would be better. I mean, Conforto, that's not like a. I'm not feeling like how they, when they signed Blake Snell, I'm not feeling that way. But, yep, there you go. The Dodgers just continuing to add. Conforto, if I remember correctly, he did do some damage against the Padres when he was with the Giants recently. And that's a left-handed hitter. Is he going to be a bench guy? Because you got Mookie. If they bring Teoscar back, there's Teoscar. And then who was in center field for them? I'm totally blanking on who was in center for them. But, I'm thinking like he could be a bench bat. I wonder what they signed him for. Or is that some saying like, let's have Michael Conforto be our Teoscar this year, where it's a 1-year deal and you can get the most out of him. But I'd rather face Conforto, to be honest, than have to go face Teoscar for multiple years. But the length of the deal has not been announced yet, at least from what I'm seeing. So I'll keep you updated if I do see anything there. Getting back to the Dennis Lin article, I believe he mentioned some names. Not that the Padres have been linked to these names, but he says here, San Diego has not been linked to such recently signed pitchers as Yusei Kikuchi, Luis Severino, Frankie Montas, Matthew Boyd, Shane Bieber. Matching any of those deals would have required a willingness to take San Diego's luxury tax number near or past the second tax threshold of $261 million. All of it adds to the argument that no team needs Roki Sasaki more than the Padres. And yeah, I'm not surprised by that. We know that Roki has been linked to the Padres. It seems like the Padres are in second place behind the Dodgers based on guesses. And again, I want to make that clear. Guesses from reporters, people on social media, guesses. People in the industry, I guess, those sources. The Padres are brought up second behind the Dodgers. But yeah, Roki would be huge because of the constraints that are clearly on the Padres right now. Danny Jansen, by the way, he is gone. If we want to go to the catching market, Higgy is gone. When Higgy signed for, a little over $6 million, I think, on the AAV for that 2-year deal with the mutual option for 2027, that's telling me, like, okay, you could have had your starting catcher back for that. You're really going cheap on catcher again. Because by the way, Gary Sanchez is gone too. He went to the Baltimore Orioles. So Jansen to the Rays, Higgy to the Rangers. What's left? I mean, it's not. I don't think it's going to be expensive, but if you weren't going to spend $6+ million AAV on Higgy, then what are you going to do with the catching situation? Should we expect them to go sign anyone of significance there for that? And anyone that wants to bring up Ethan Salas, and they'll bring Ethan Salas up here when he's 18? It doesn't seem like he's ready. I did, by the way, if you didn't check out the conversation that I had earlier today with Isaiah Lowe, number 8 prospect in the Padres system, according to MLB.com, that is out on the podcast platforms and on YouTube, so you can check that out. From what I hear from him, Ethan Salas, like he's mature and he goes over to the player apartments with the pitchers and looks over scouting reports and gets into that. Like it seems like he's really prepared and he's not the normal 18-year-old, which I'm not surprised to hear from Isaiah there. But is he ready offensively? Is he ready to take that on to be the starting? Because when Ethan comes up, he's going to be the starting catcher, right? They're not going to have Ethan Salas and waste service time and have him be the backup catcher. To me, 2026 is when we could really start talking about Ethan Salas coming up to the big leagues. Right now, I mean, it's Campy and Brett Sullivan. You got to add. To me, right now, with Gary off the board, not that they were going to sign Austin Nola, but he signed a non-roster invitee deal to the Rockies, I believe, earlier today. To me, this is like screaming that they bring back Elias Diaz, and that's what they rock with. Unless they go trade for a catcher that I'm not thinking about right now, I could definitely see it being Elias Diaz, vet. He can occasionally pop one. He's got good defense. He can be a good veteran guy for Luis Campusano. And then you hope that Campusano can stay healthy. Obviously, like sign someone else other than Elias Diaz to be probably another veteran to be there in El Paso with Sully. But if they're going cheap on catcher, it seems like Elias Diaz, he was already in the organization. He's got good baseball savant defensive numbers. So if we're trying to find a positive there, it's that. Preller doesn't have a history of going expensive on catchers either. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised that they didn't go sign Higgy. But I was listening to Higgy on MLB Network, and I think it was Matt Vasgersian was one of the hosts there. And Higgy was essentially saying part of why he was signing with the Rangers was how much they made it clear like they wanted him, and they went out and got him. They were aggressive with it. I don't know if that's a shot at the Padres or like him hinting that the Padres maybe were trying to wait on Higgy and have his market go down, and he maybe not getting the money that he wanted, and then he just comes back to the Padres, like Profar, that sort of thing last year. But that clearly didn't happen. And so maybe the Padres missed on that. Or they were like, hey, we can't give our catcher $6+ million a year, which isn't a lot, by the way. Like, especially in this, that's not a lot. Especially for your starting catcher coming off a year that he just had. That's not a lot. Are they saving that money to make sure that they re-sign Jurickson Profar to be their left fielder? Are they going to save that money to sign a pitcher? I don't know. But yeah, right now it's not off to a great start. I wanted Higgy back. I thought that, especially when it's again that AAV, that's not like it. If it was $10 million a year, I'd more understand it. Obviously, I'm not in there, don't know exactly the Padres' financial situation, but yeah, I was disappointed to see the numbers come out. When I reacted initially to Higgy signing with the Rangers, I thought that it was 8 to 10 mil, and it wasn't that. And so yeah, I was more disappointed, frustrated as well. As a Padres fan, paying hundreds of dollars for those postseason tickets, and my family has season tickets, and I'm just, it's frustrating, with the catching situation that we have, that they couldn't sign Higgy to $7 million, whatever it was, $7 million a year. You can't do that. They better bring Profar back then, or better make those additions to that rotation to improve that rotation. I believe the terms to Michael Conforto just came out, so let me see that. Holy cow. They gave him $17 million. 1 year, $17 million. So yeah, that's the Teoscar Hernandez. That's their Teoscar this year. They could bring back Teoscar as well and sign him to like a 4-year deal, but wow. If Conforto got $17 million, what is Profar going to get? Now, I know that's 1 year for Conforto, so maybe, on a multi-year deal, it's less for Profar. But for Profar, I'm thinking it's going to be like $15 million a year, 12 to $15 million a year. If we're looking on those 2 seasons, Conforto and Profar, it's not that close. Profar had a 3.6 WAR. Michael Conforto was 1.3. Profar, I guess it's a little bit closer than I thought. 24 homers for Profar, 20 for Conforto. But I thought Conforto was more thought of as a power hitter than Profar was. 85 runs driven in for Profar, 66 for Conforto, 56 runs scored for Conforto, 94 runs scored for Profar, 380 on base for Profar, 309 for Conforto, 459 slug for Profar, 450 for Conforto, 759 OPS for Conforto, 839 for Profar, 134 OPS plus for Profar, 116 OPS plus for Conforto. Coming off the year that Profar just had, I would think that he would get more. He's going to get more money. Maybe it's a similar AAV there, 17 mil for more years. Are the Padres going to do that? I'm not feeling super great about it, to be quite honest, when the Padres passed on Higgy at the amount that he got, you know? So let's continue here with Dennis Lin's article. Again, Preller, he's never paid more to a catcher than Derek Norris at a little less than $3 million in 2016. We know how that worked out. Team officials still believe Ethan Salas could reach the majors before his 20th birthday, and he's 18 right now, so that's still a couple of years, little less than a couple of years. They harbor similar hope for another teenager, shortstop Leo DeVries. That's another question mark as well. Are the Padres going to sign Ha-Seong Kim back with Willy Adames going to the Giants? Is it going to be like bringing in Nick Ahmed? Because he's obviously a free agent. Who is that going to be? Tim Anderson, no thank you. They did just sign Mason McCoy on a minor league deal to be with El Paso. It's pretty much waiting till those guys come. But you got to sign some. You got to bring someone in, trade for someone, something. And again, I bring back them probably wanting to be a little bit lower than where they are with the payroll. Dylan Cease, Luis Arraez, Michael King. Those are guys that I think of with salaries there. But those are key pieces to your team. So Preller's got to work that magic for sure. Other teams figure to continue asking about the two top prospects, regardless of claims that they are off limits. Talking about DeVries and Ethan Salas. Cease and Arraez, both veterans, they face an uncertain future, in San Diego. Cease projected to make $13.7 million in his final round of arbitration. Dennis writes, for a team operating with financial constraints, it prompts certain questions. The Padres might have incentive to explore the trade market for Cease, perhaps with the idea of recouping a cheaper, less proven starter or two. The Red Sox, to me, immediately flash as a potential option there. I know Garrett Crochet has been linked to them. What about the Blue Jays? I mean, we're hearing them about Soto and how they may sneakily offer a ton of money. And they were linked to Ohtani there. So, their last year with Vlad and Bo Bichette, right? At least under contract. So do they want to go all out there? Maybe they trade for Cease and they just immediately offer him this huge extension. Who knows? Arraez is projected to make $14.6 million, a considerable sum for a player whose value remains debated throughout the industry, including inside San Diego's front office. A league source said the Padres had not yet engaged in serious extension talks with the three-time batting champ. Arraez, obviously, he has expressed interest in settling down, multi-year deal. That obviously would benefit both sides. So I don't want to just mention trading Arraez, but they could get an extension done, lower that AAV, get under that first luxury tax. Maybe they trade someone else. But if they really value Arraez and they want him to be there at the top of that lineup, then they could do that too. Padres seem inclined to hang on to Robert Suarez. could figure into trade talks, though. I mean, you need to keep Robert Suarez, right? You have Scott and Suarez go. Like, that would be. If Suarez gets traded, then yeah, obviously the Padres, they're in some trouble financially. Because as much as people were bagging on him, and I'll admit it, like I was concerned a little bit there in the postseason based on how he ended the regular season. He got the job done still in the postseason. So, and we know for most of 2024, he was dominant. He was really good. So, yeah, he's huge. To have Adam and Suarez at the back there, you have obviously Estrada, Morejon. We'll see if they make a deal for another reliever. If they're going to add to the reliever to the bullpen, I assume it would be via trade, just because of the money, the financial constraints that I'm talking about here, that we're reading about. The Padres remain hopeful, if not confident, about a potential reunion with Jurickson Profar. Dennis writes, if the Padres failed to bring Profar back to the city where he has flourished, it would reinforce perceptions of fiscal restraint. Such a strategy could be seen as a disservice to fans after another season of record attendance and a trip to the NLDS. Yep. It's not just that Profar is a fan favorite, it's that if he leaves, what are you doing in left field? You're not signing Anthony Santander. Michael Conforto is off the board. You're not signing Teoscar Hernandez. Sure, you can make a trade, but Profar fits. You know that Profar fits with the Padres. It's obvious. He was big for, obviously, you don't need me to tell you that. He was huge for where the Padres ended up. And I know they came up short, but he came up big a lot of times in 2024 to help get the Padres to the postseason. So, yeah, having him not come back, and then imagine if he goes to another National League team. That would hurt. I wonder what the Padres' strategy is with Jurickson Profar. Is it to wait it out and you hope that he doesn't get the market, other guys sign, and then he comes back to the Padres because he doesn't want to go to a non-contending team maybe, and you could get him for less? But that's a dangerous strategy because all it takes is one contending team to value him more than the Padres do in terms of like money they're willing to offer. Look at what the Giants just did with Willy Adames. Maybe other teams were waiting for Willy Adames because, he's not going to cost, what was it? Well over $100 million that he got. He's not going to cost that. What was the contract here? $182 million. I'm sure there were teams that had to have been like, yeah, we're interested, but let's wait for the price tag to come down. Or that the price isn't that high. All it takes is one team to do that same thing. They're not going to get Profar 180 mil, obviously, but all it takes is one team to do that same thing, and they go grab Jurickson Profar. And then the Padres are sitting there like, what the heck just happened? All right, quick break, and then I'm going to get to Kevin Acee's piece. Check out Gaglione Bros' famous cheesesteaks and garlic fries on Friars Road. You can visit their website, gaglionebros.com, for their entire menu and enjoy their cheesesteaks and fries at Petco Park and Snapdragon Stadium as well. All right, getting to Kevin Acee's piece that he put out earlier this morning, more about the Padres' financial situation. The title was Padres have moves to make, but likely won't be on winter meetings center stage this year. And that's what I wrote in my Gaslamp Ball piece, a few questions going into this winter meetings week. I think I put that out yesterday. Some questions that I have, by the way, will the Padres talk to Roki Sasaki? Because he's expected, and this is something that's maybe being forgotten right now because all the attention's on Juan Soto. But Sasaki is expected to be posted this week. So are the Padres going to have that conversation this week? That it's a 45-day negotiating period once he is posted. Padres seem to be one of the favorites, but around the industry, those sources that everyone seems to have, the Dodgers are the favorite, so-called favorite there. Another question that I have is, like how quiet or how noisy will the Padres be this week? To me, I feel like they're going to be pretty quiet. And this is going to be just a lot of conversations with other teams and agents trying to get a better sense of what the market is looking like here. That's what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting a ton of action from the Padres. I think that we're waiting for Soto, the whole baseball world, and then you could see some of those big time starting pitchers later in the week come off the board. The Padres aren't in on that. So maybe by the end of winter meetings week, the Padres could start getting close because some of the higher guys have gone. And then those lower guys can start having more serious conversations with teams, knowing what those other guys got, knowing other teams, now knowing the teams better who will want them, because they missed out maybe on other guys. So yeah, I'm not expecting this big week from the Padres. Last winter meetings week, right? Last year, we were expecting Juan Soto to be traded. And the Yankees were that one serious team, right? And I remember I had actually one of the Talking Yanks guys on the show. I don't know if you guys remember that, but we were literally talking about Padres, Yankees, what a Juan Soto trade might look like, and putting out some hypothetical trades there. I'm not there with any Padres players, whether that be Suarez or Arise or Cease, anyone like that. It's not like last year, it was a guarantee Soto was going to be traded. That's how I felt. Like they're not going to be able to build out a roster like they did if Soto's not traded. This year, they could still build out a roster. Padres ownership, they're just going to have to be willing to go over that first luxury tax if they want to keep Arise, Cease, or you're going to have to work out an extension with someone like Luis Arise. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Padres approach this. Kevin writes, the feeling is that with movement near the top end of the free agent market already underway, this year's winter meetings could be full of actions and transactions. It won't be nothing like last year, said one agent whose firm represents several dozen players. Sasaki not expected to sign with an MLB team until at least mid-January. No surprise there because he's waiting for the international bonus pool money, that international time to reset, which is January 15th, I believe. Padres, as expected, not playing at the level of Pete Alonso, Alex Bregman, Max Fried, Corbin Burns. Obviously, I think a lot of Padres fans would point to the Xander Bogaerts contract and be like, well, if that didn't happen, then we could be in on one of these big-time starting pitchers, and that would really help. And you could have a rotation of Darvish, Michael King, Dylan Cease, Corbin Burns, and Roki Sasaki. Obviously, those are big hypotheticals, but you could have that, even with Musgrove out and having Tommy John, if you didn't sign Bogaerts to that $280 million contract. Or you could bring Kim back easily. You could bring Profar back easily. Obviously, there's a lot of things. I still don't think, like, with the money that's being floated out there with Juan Soto, $700+ million, I don't think the Padres, even if they didn't sign Bogaerts, I don't think that they would have been playing in that. That's just so much money to give to one player when the Padres arguably could say, especially with AJ Preller, you're better off spreading that money out and not spending it on one player. As talented as Juan Soto is, we saw this year without him and what they were able to get back from him. It was more of a complete team. It was a better roster as a team. I'm not saying on paper necessarily, but it was a better team than the year before, clearly. Kevin writes, moves are coming, but there remain budget considerations. Players under team control for 2025 are due around $210 million. There have been strong indications that payroll number will be lower by opening day, meaning the Padres have some maneuvering to do in the way of trades and or long-term contracts that would trim money owed for the upcoming season. The Padres payroll is still expected to increase from 2024 season ending $169 million mark. Now, that payroll mark is not the luxury tax. That's just the payroll. The organization is cognizant it must continue winning in order to maintain the current level of fan interest and investment. Club officials have repeatedly vowed to fund a contending team year in and year out for the foreseeable future. Their recent commitments suggest they mean it. And what he means by that, obviously, adding someone like Luis Ariz, Dylan Cease, Michael King. There was that Manning extension before Seidler passed away. Um, Trade deadline, acquiring those guys that they did acquire. Jason Adam. I know Tanner Scott was just that 1 year or half a year, but did that. They are trying to win. But clearly there are still constraints. But it's just frustrating when deals are signed from guys that played a key role in what happened this past season. They signed somewhere else on a deal that I feel like could still happen. It's not like I'm asking the Padres to spend $20 million a year on a guy. Kevin writes here, the club says it will not part with its top two prospects, Leo DeVry and Ethan Salas, both of whom could be regulars by 2026. Virtually anyone else is considered movable. The Padres are light on talent that is close to the majors, but rich in pitching at the lower levels. I think Isaiah Lowe would be who I had on the show today. I assume that he would be part of that if the right guy comes across. Other teams seem to have more to entice the White Sox, who seem intent on trading Garrett Crochet. The Red Sox are definitely one of those teams, by the way. But the Padres could be players for Rays, Zach Littell, the Marlins, Jesus Luzardo, the Brewers is Aaron Savali, and others. So out of those names, Jesus Luzardo is intriguing. Lefty, I believe, right? It's a name that I think baseball fans know. He has had an injury history. So that is something to be aware of. Let me pull up these guys' 2024 seasons real quick, just to not just gloss over what Kevin wrote there. So Zach Littell, right-handed pitcher, he had a 3.63 ERA, 29 starts this past season. So someone that was able to stay healthy. His whip was under 1.3, a little over 150 innings. He had 28 games, 14 starts in 2023. This past year was his first season in the big leagues where he had, like a full season workload, where he had 29 starts. So that would be interesting to see. Look, that's not someone I don't think that the Padres would have to give up. Well, they don't have them anymore, but like a Dylan Lesko and who was the other one? Robbie Snelling. Not something like that. That Jason Adam package, that was a good amount there. I don't think that you'd have to give up that much for someone like Zach Littell. I wonder how much control he has. Zach Littell contract. Let's see. So he's expected to be a free agent after next season. So after the 2025 season, expected to make $6 million. Or no, this is the contract term. $6 million for this season. So that's not super expensive. If we go look at Jesus Luzardo, to me, I feel like he hasn't fully clicked at the big league level, like where he's been able to stay healthy and then have a great season. 2023, he had a sub-4 ERA and 32 starts, so you'll take that. But I feel like with the name Jesus Luzardo, I feel like people have expected more out of him than what he's been able to deliver. He only had 12 starts this season for the Marlins. So he's only had 1 year where he's been able at the big leagues to make 30 starts so far. So that is a risk that the Padres would be taking there if they were to acquire Luzardo. Who's the other one? Aaron Savali. I don't know if the Brewers would want to get rid of him because they're trying to contend, and that's a starting arm in their rotation. Um, 4.36 ERA, 31 starts this past year, 1.304 WHIP. Hasn't been able to do that consistently though. 31 starts this year, 23 last year, 20 in 2022. But he's been he's been a starter. Okay. So yeah, that would fit, I think, as your back end starter. I don't think we would have these sky high expectations for him, but it also depends on the money. So let's see how much he is projected to make. Aaron Savali. $9.7 million. Are the Padres willing to do that? And it would be a trade, obviously. So would the Brewers have to eat some of that money? Remember that Luis Ariz deal. The Padres, yeah, they gave up a good amount, but they had the Marlins pay pretty much the entire contract for Luis Ariz for the 2024 season. So that made it really easy to go pick him up for the Padres based on money. So could we see something like that if they don't want to pay $9+ million for a starter? But they're going to have to give up more in their farm system. They may have to give up an extra arm if they want to do that. If you're the Padres, though, don't you want to try to go the free agent route first so you don't have to give up stuff in a trade? See what that market is. And then if things aren't going your way, wait on guys. You can never have enough arms, so you can wait, right before spring training, see who's available. But if things aren't looking good for you free agency wise, then you go the trade route, I assume. But yeah, Kevin Acee, this is the first time that I've seen someone connect the Padres. He's not saying they are players, but he's saying they could be players for Littell, Luzardo, Savali, and others. Another interesting thing that was talked about here was Luis Campusano. The wording from Kevin here confused some people on social media today. And so I'm going to clear this up for anyone that was confused. Kevin writes, it is a certainty now that the Padres need a catcher, and perhaps two after Kyle Gashioka signed with the Rangers last week. It seems as likely Luis Campusano, who finished the season in AAA after beginning it as the primary starter, will be packaged in a trade as be in spring training with the Padres. So again, let me take out the middle of that sentence, to make this better for you, for anyone confused. It seems as likely Luis Campusano will be packaged in a trade as be in spring training with the Padres. So for those that didn't understand what Kevin was saying here, to me, that's like the Padres don't know what they're going to do with Campy yet. There's a fine, not a strong chance, but there's a decent chance, it's not zero, that he could be traded this offseason in a package. And that would be the team acquiring Campy. They would be like, hey, this could be our backup catcher. If maybe a change of scenery situation here, and that team could give the Padres pitching depth that they have it, or an infielder, or a left fielder if they can't get Profar, or a DH bat, something like that. Or maybe a team is like, hey, there's 1 year left on this veteran catcher. Let's give him to the Padres, and let's get Luis Campusano, who has multiple years with less money probably that they'd be paying that year. So yeah, what Kevin was trying to say here, I think, is maybe it's 50-50 right now on Campy being a Padre come February 15th or whatever the reporting date is, being a Padre or being on another team. And I think the Padres, if they trade Campy, it would be like, one, it would be really disappointing because the Campy experiment didn't work. Campy was supposed to be the bridge to Ethan Salas. And maybe even better than that. Maybe move to another position and be a DH because of how well he performs when Ethan Salas comes up. But I'm not saying it can't happen. It just hasn't happened yet. We can look at Profar's career. It took a while for Profar to get to where he got to this past year, right? Or even back to 2022. It took a little bit. Maybe Campy, it did take a different scenery for Profar. Maybe that's what it's going to take for Campy. But also, Campy hasn't been able to stay healthy. When he was on the field, it was underwhelming, disappointing. I was hoping that he was going to take another step forward. But then he also wasn't able to stay on the field. And then Higgy took over, and that was that. Because Higgy deserved to be the catcher, and Campy didn't. No way can the Padres go into spring training and saying Campy's our starting catcher, and that's what we got. They've got to add someone. Campy's got to earn that. I'm not saying that Campy can't earn it. He has talent. We've seen flashes, but it hasn't been consistent enough for him to just walk into spring training as the starting catcher. I don't think any Padre fan wants that, to be quite honest. So that was what Kevin wrote. And yeah, so that's a little bit of a winter meetings preview for everyone as we get into winter meetings week. We are already in the winter meetings because executives are arriving. MLB Network is already on the air. They already announced 2 new Hall of Famers, Dave Parker and Dick Allen. So congratulations to them. Michael Conforto signing with the Dodgers, which that's obviously not great. And yeah, my 3 questions that I really have going into this week, is this going to be a quiet week for Preller on the free agent front? I feel like it is. Will there be a surprise trade? There could be. But it feels like to me a lot of the attention is on Garrett Crochet right now, and Padres aren't in that. A lot of the attention is on the free agents, the big pitchers, and obviously Juan Soto's at the forefront, and he will be until he signs. And Roki Sasaki shouldn't be at the forefront. Maybe we'll hear about meetings that he has, but he's not going to be. He shouldn't be on the forefront because he's not going to sign until mid-January. You know, it's December 8th. We got a while. And yeah, will the Padres talk to Sasaki? That's really what I'm thinking about right now going into this week. And I'm curious to see what you all are thinking. And I will get to the comments after I shout out some of the great partners of this show. Breaking Tea, they've got Padres and Aztecs shirts and sweatshirts. Aztecs basketball, I've been doing recap videos after their games. So any Aztecs fans, you can check those out if you did not know that I was doing those already. Aztecs, they beat USD last night at home, and I believe they got Cal Baptist coming up next Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. Underdog Fantasy, you will get a 50% deposit match when you sign up with the code Talking Friars. 50% deposit match. That is a deposit match up to $1,000. $20 off your SeatGeek order, your first SeatGeek order when you sign up with your email. Same code, Talking Friars. Underdog Fantasy, by the way, they've got a lot going on. Obviously, MLB when the season starts, but they've got NFL, college football, college basketball. UFC, I think they have golf as well. They've got a lot there. So check them out. And without further ado, let's get to the chat. I've got some super chats in here. Albert, thank you so much. Padres baseball in all caps. Let's win it all 2025. Wait, just audio, no video? Hopefully you can see me now. Yeah, sorry about that internet. It's not great because my phone is cracked, so that's why you're seeing that. It's the crack there. But yeah, sorry. I'm not going to be able to read. Maybe I can because I can. The chat is still up on my laptop here, so that's cool. And so I'll try to go through the chat here. I do want to get to the super chats because that's my first priority, obviously. So I'm glad that I was able to get to the super chats. Those that are listening on the podcast, I apologize. Hopefully you just scrolled, you fast forwarded through me trying to get through those internet issues. All right. Albert says Padres baseball. Let's win it all in 2025. JD's third says, why are we cutting spending payroll to 170? Did I say that it's going to be 170? I know that what I saw from, it was Dennis, right? Or was it Kevin? The Padres payroll is still expected to increase from 2024 season ending $169 million mark. That doesn't mean that it's only going to be 170. And why are we cutting payroll spending / payroll to 170? What I would say is because the AAVs that we have, Manny, Tatis, Bogarts, Crony, Musgrove, Darvish, that is a big chunk of this payroll. That's a big reason why the AAVs are there. So that's why. Part of it is what I mentioned earlier, the TV deal, where the Padres are missing out on tens of millions of dollars that they thought they were going to get, but they're not going to get because of what happened with the whole Diamond Sports, Bally Sports, whatever you want to call it thing, where now they're just going to be on MLB TV. And so they're not going to get that money. And I'll say it again, like I said earlier, missing the postseason in 2023 was a huge deal. It's a big reason why the Padres probably aren't in on some of these guys and aren't willing to go super high over the luxury tax threshold. If they're willing to go over the luxury tax threshold at all, they didn't make the postseason, so they missed out on a ton of probably tens of millions of revenue there with home games that they could have hosted. So has a number, I don't know if a number has come out with how much money they did make just this postseason, but imagine with that team that they had on paper, and if everyone was all in 2023 and they made the postseason, they only missed out on by a couple of games there. If they would have made it, Juan Soto, holy cow, to the Mets, 765, 15 years. I knew it. I knew he was going to the Mets. Steve Cohen was not going to let anyone beat him. So that sucks. We're probably going to be facing Juan Soto and the Mets in the postseason at some point. But yeah, that is breaking news. I literally just saw it from John Heyman. Goes to the Mets, 15 years, 765 million. Shocker, John Heyman was first. Did anyone see, by the way, his segment on WFAN? That was crazy. How he just crashed out talking with Keith McPherson. And I know that Keith McPherson probably shouldn't have gone as far as he did. And he was poking the bear, and the bear, erupted. But yeah, all right. We got it tonight. Juan Soto, 15 years, 765 million to the Mets. The Mets aren't going to stop there. You sign Juan Soto, you're not just going to be like, all right, well, that's it. So, yeah, we knew Soto wanted to go to the most money. He was in it for the money. I'm not saying this is the Marlins that he's going to. He's going to a team that just made it to the NLCS. But are the Mets a team year in and year out that's going to do that? I don't think so. But good for Juan, I guess. 765 million, he gets to stay in the New York area. Yankees fans are going to be pissed. Have the Padres won the trade? I mean, they made it to the World Series, but they didn't win. They acquired Juan Soto to win the World Series. Oh, 1 second. Okay, I can hear myself here. Actually, so I'm just going to leave the studio on my laptop because I can hear myself in my headphones. All right. You should be able to hear me good now. So, yeah, with Soto, does that make the Padres' route to the World Series more difficult? Maybe. It just depends if they face Juan Soto. And the Mets could take a postseason spot away from the Padres, so that's not ideal. The team I wanted him to go to the most was probably the Red Sox or the Blue Jays, someone like that. But hey, he didn't go to the Dodgers. He didn't go a team in the division. If you want to say it's an overpay for Soto, I mean, you can say that. But how much is an overpay for Soto when you're Steve Cohen? It seems like he has unlimited resources, and when he wants to go all out for a player, he's going to go all out for a player. I'm not surprised by this, Soto going to the Mets. I'm not. That's a contending team. Again, I don't think that they're going to stop there. Yeah, I don't have too much more to add there. on Soto. Again, I'm just not surprised by it. Are the Mets going to bring back Pete Alonso now? Because that's a ton of money that they spent on one guy. I mean, I wouldn't say finally Cohen got a big fish. I mean, they did trade for Lindor, and then he locked Lindor down. They signed Max Scherzer. They signed Justin Verlander. Those are some pretty big fishes, I would say. Questions that you wanted me to answer, please put them in now because I did not get to them earlier, and I don't have access to them now because I logged on my phone because my laptop's not working, or at least the Wi-Fi's not working. David says someone get Ben an iPhone 16 Plus. Yeah, just give me a not cracked phone, I guess. I'm a simple guy though. Like I don't need these, the latest phone every year. Whatever. Again, with this Soto thing, we could look at it a couple of ways. We could be like, hey, thank goodness he's not on the Dodgers. Or we could look at it as, well, that's now a guy, one of the best players, probably will end up being one of the best players ever, one of the best hitters for sure. He is now on a team that could take a spot from the Padres, take a postseason spot for them, or a team that could go knock down the Padres in the postseason. So that sucks. That's unfortunate. But I mean, I still like the Padres a lot. The talent that they have in the lineup. Yes, there's holes. I'm not saying this is a World Series team right now, but the Mets aren't either. Let's not just forget just because they signed Soto that they don't need starting pitching. They need starting pitching still. All right, before I get out of here, because I don't want to crash out again here. Any last questions? Last chance. Any questions that you want going into the winter meetings here? Again, apologies for the internet problem. I will put, hopefully, if I remember, I will put the timestamps on YouTube for those that are watching on replay. Like, hey, skip to this part so that you don't have to sit through what the live audience had to sit through. Apologies, by the way, to the live audience. Nico says, I miss Peter Seidler, F. Eric. I'm not going to go that far because, again, I don't know. Of course, I miss Peter. I agree with that. But I don't know, like, maybe Eric wants to spend, but he only has a certain amount of money to spend. That they collectively decided as a group that, yeah, this is what I have. Because, again, missing out on the postseason in 2023. The TV deal going away and having to be on MLB or Padres TV, MLB app, whatever. That's a lot of money that they aren't able to get while you have teams like the Dodgers having this huge TV deal, teams like the Yankees, the Mets have SNY. That's a huge advantage that the Padres don't have. And so maybe the Padres are in a spot right now where, yeah, they might be in a little bit better of a spot financially, like I think Dennis or Kevin wrote in one of their pieces these last couple of days. But the Padres could be in a spot where they're still just trying to make up for what they lost in 2023 to get to a point where, all right, now we can start spending again. Because maybe like last year was just to get back even with debt that they remember they had to take out a $50 million loan. Maybe it was more than that, but I think it was at least $50 million. Let's not forget about that. How much did they make in the postseason this year? And how much did they make in the 2024 season? But also not just how much they made, but how much did they have to pay? Right. So like, what was the profit actually? They're not going to tell us that. We don't know. So I get it if you're a fan and you're really frustrated and you want to, be pissed off at the Padres. But I also want to be fair to them as well. And I'm frustrated they didn't bring back Higgy for that amount for sure. But I also want to be fair and just say, like, I'm not in there. We don't know the money that they have to spend. How much money did they make this past year? We just don't know. And Preller could be cooking up something, and we end up being fine with what ends up happening this offseason. Yeah, 765 mil. That is a crazy amount, Devin, for sure. If you would have asked me before the offseason started, the Yankees offer was 16 years, 760 mil. Soto took 15 for 765. So literally it was about the money. Because if he wanted to win more, I feel like the Yankees are in a better spot. I feel like the Yankees will be a contender more consistently than the Mets will. But the Mets could go at some big pitching, and then, we have a different conversation. The Phillies, they're getting older. So, but yeah, Soto totally was about the money. That's what I get from that. What was I just saying? Oh yeah, 765. At the beginning of the offseason, I would have said that was a crazy amount as well. But these past few days, with how much the amount has been increasing, hearing from John Heyman, who, yes, has that relationship with Scott Boras, I'm not surprised at all with what happened. We were hearing 15 years. We were hearing $700+ million. We were hearing $750 million getting floated out there. And if the Mets wanted to, they wanted to end the conversation and just end it right there, then yeah, an increase of 15, like, that's nothing. You're in it that far. There was going to be no, in my opinion, there was going to be like no limit for the Mets. For the Yankees, and I was texting this to someone earlier today when they were asking me about Soto and what I thought. I was like, the Mets, because again, no limit. The Yankees, they're going to reach a limit at some point because they're going to be like, hey, we can spend this $700 million on Max Fried and Corbin Burnes and Tanner Scott. Let's just do that. And then we'll see what we can do with the lineup. We still have Aaron Judge. There's still some talent there in that lineup. Let's just do that. Let's go sign Teoscar Hernandez and then sign Corbin Burnes to be in that rotation with Garrett Cole instead of signing Soto to this long deal. Let the Mets go do that. We're not competing with them until the World Series. So if they want to do that, then go do that. And maybe that's what the Yankees are thinking. We could totally see the Yankees go add those big time starting pitchers. And I would love that because that means that they're not on the Mets, who, yeah, the Padres could face the Yankees in the World Series, but I'm more concerned, obviously, about getting there first. So that means they're not a Giant, they're not a Dodger, and they're in the American League. We'll see if the Blue Jays end up doing anything. So, yeah, that's what I've got. Thank you, everyone, for the time. Sorry for the internet issues. And again, for the podcast audience, for the YouTube audience, well, for the podcast audience, I'm going to be putting in the YouTube timestamps, so it might not be fully accurate, but it'll be around that. So you could skip around. But try to put you in the ballpark is what I'll try to do here. But yeah, thank you everyone for the time. And if there's any moves the Padres make, I will sure to be covering it here. Have a good one.